Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make Blueberry Streusel Scones, or maybe you call them scones. And this is what they look like. As you can see, they're full of blueberries. You can use either fresh or frozen. And then on top, we're going to sprinkle a brown sugar and cinnamon streusel, which I think adds a nice sweet flavor and gives the scones a nice crunchiness. So to start, preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 200 degrees Celsius. And then you will need a baking sheet. Now you can line it with a piece of parchment paper like I've done here, or you could just lightly butter or even spray the pan with a non-stick cooking spray. And then I like to make my scones by hand. So in a large bowl I have 2 cups, that's 260 grams of all-purpose flour. You may know that as plain flour. And then to that I'm going to add 1/3 cup, 65 grams of granulated white sugar. If you have any lumps, just get rid of those. And then 2 teaspoons, 8 grams of baking powder. And then just 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I'm just going to use a wire whisk. You can use a wooden spoon to just stir that. You want to make sure all that baking powder and the salt is really mixed into the flour. And then I'm going to add to that 6 tablespoons, which is 85 grams of cold butter. You can use either salted or unsalted. And just cut it into small chunks, because what we're going to do is cut the butter into the flour mixture until we have coarse crumbs. So if you have it already cut into small pieces, it kind of makes it go a little faster. Now you can use a pastry blender like I have here to do that. You could use 2 knives, or you could just use your fingertips. So just cut it in. Now another thing is you could just put all of this, if you want to cut down on time, you could put all of this in your food processor and then just process until you have coarse crumbs. Okay, that looks good. So this is what you're looking for. A few large chunks of butter is okay, but just coarse crumbs. Okay, so now we're going to add 1 cup, which is about 140 grams of blueberries. I'm using fresh today. You could use frozen. If you're using frozen, don't thaw them out before you add them to the flour. And just be aware that your batter may turn a little bit blue from the frozen blueberries. So if you're using fresh, wash them and then pick through them and remove any soft ones or mushy ones. And if sometimes you get the little stem, just remove that. And then you can just use your fingers, or you can use your spatula. Just want to coat all the blueberries with the flour. It's easy enough. So next, wet ingredients. We need 1 large egg, and I'm just going to break that up a bit, just lightly beat it. Wire whisk, you could use a fork as well. And then to that, I'm going to add 1/2 cup, 120 milliliters. Now you can use either milk, like whole milk, 2%, or you could use a cream. The higher the fat content of the milk or the cream, of course, the richer the flavor of your scones will be. So you can decide on that. And then I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla, just for a little flavoring. If you don't want the vanilla, you could leave that out. So let's whisk that. And then, now at this point, I don't add all of the liquid. I add almost, but I leave a little behind because you never know how much liquid your flour is going to absorb. So I'm going to add most of it, but leave a little behind. Otherwise, because you don't want a real sticky dough. I mean a little, but you don't want it wet. And then just gently toss. You want everything moistened. Try not to overmix, of course. This is why, even if you did cut the butter into the flour in your food processor, I like to do this part by hand. So I Make sure I don't overmix. Okay, so I'm going to add a little more. You can always add more, but you can't take away, so just keep that in mind. Now I'm going to use my hands here. Make sure everything's mixed together. Yeah, it looks like I have about the right amount. As you can see, I have a little bit of the milk left. Yeah, that's kind of, it's a little sticky, but not overly so. Okay. Put that out of the way. So now what we want to do is just put a little flour on your work surface and just knead the dough a few times just to kind of bring it all together. Nice smooth dough. That's good. A little more. And then we're going to form it into, I'm going to cut the scones into triangles. So I'm going to just pat it. You could roll it. I just use my hands and pat it. Now into about a 7-inch, which is 18-centimeter round. I'm just going to eyeball it. You can get your ruler out for this. It's your first time. And make sure you get enough flour on the bottom because you don't want your scones to stick. Okay, so that looks good. So now I'm just going to take a knife and cut that in half. And cut it in half again. I'm going to make 8. And just evenly space them on your baking sheet. Okay, that looks good. So now, our next step is our streusel topping. So I got another bowl, and in that bowl, I'm just going to wipe my hands, a little sticky here. Okay, so we're going to make our streusel. In a bowl, put 1/4 cup, which is 35 grams of all-purpose flour or plain flour, and 1/4 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar, which is about 55 grams. And then I like my streusel to taste of cinnamon, so I'm putting 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. And then I'm just going to mix that up. You can just use a spoon if you want, or a whisk. Actually, I'm going to if your brown sugar tends to have lumps like mine does, I'm just going to get my fingers in there. And then we need a little butter. 2 tablespoons, 28 grams of cold. Again, have your butter cold and have it cut into little small pieces because we're going to do the same thing as we did with our scones. We're going to cut the butter into our mixture here until it's nice and crumbly. I'm using my pastry blender again. You could just use your fingers or knives or even maybe a fork, whatever you have handy. So, just take your pan and then have a little milk or cream, and with a pastry brush, we're just going to brush the tops of the scones because that way our streusel mixture will stick to the top. Plus it helps with browning, a little milk or cream of the scones. Okay, so now we're just going to sprinkle a little bit, you know, maybe 1 to 2 teaspoons. Really, this is a matter of personal preference. If you like a lot, then and then just kind of gently press it down so it sticks. Okay, so now we're going to bake these for somewhere between 18-20 minutes, or until they're nicely browned and a toothpick inserted into the center comes out clean. Okay, so don't our blueberry scones look wonderful? Lovely golden brown. So just let them cool on the wire rack in the pan for maybe 5-10 minutes, and then when we come back, we'll taste one. Okay, so let's try a bit here. Oh, that's really nice combination of texture and flavor. You got the crunchiness of the streusel with the kind of, the outside of the scone is kind of crispy, but the inside is really soft and tender. And then the flavors, well, you got the blueberries, you've got the kind of little sweetness to the scone, and then of course the brown sugar and cinnamon streusel. Really nice scone. Of course, scones are always at their best the day they are made, but you could cover and store them for a few days, and then you could just either reheat them in the oven, or I just usually in the microwave. And you can also freeze them. So enjoy, and until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.